Was the key, Nick, to the Packers win last night?
One guy who's been there for over a decade and a few people who got there this year. The guy who's been there over a decade is Aaron Rodgers. If you watched Week 17 against Detroit, a very important game for Green Bay because the bye was on the line. They had the potential, maybe they could have been the 1 seed if San Francisco had lost, but they also could fall to the 3 line. Rodgers was missing every long pass he threw. Everything was an overthrow, overthrow, overthrow. And it was the culmination of 8 straight weeks of Rodgers playing very mediocre football. In this game, he was perfect. Not a single incompletion on balls that traveled more than 10 yards through the air. On third downs, they threw it on every 3rd and long, and he was perfect on that too. An actual perfect quarterback rating. And they trusted him at the end of the game to not give the ball back to Seattle. We're not just going to run, and then punt the ball away. 3rd and 8. We will trust you to find Davante Adams. And in fact, Davante said after the game, Rodgers checked out of the route. It was supposed to be a quick slant. He told Davante what route to run at the line of scrimmage, and that worked. And then the play to Jimmy Graham, which brings me to the other people that were the keys. Matt LaFleur did something Mike McCarthy often didn't do, which is at the end of games, not play the clock, we've got the best guy, trust him to win it for us. The last time Green Bay played Seattle in a playoff game, the conference championship game in 2014, the crushing loss when Green Bay had a big lead early that a lot of people thought was kind of the break point between Rodgers and McCarthy. McCarthy did not trust Aaron Rodgers consistently once they had a big lead. They kicked a lot of short field goals. They wouldn't go for 4. They wouldn't put the ball in Rodgers' hands in the critical moments, and they ended up losing this game. LaFleur put it in his hands at all the critical moments, and the last person who's also new is Preston Smith. When it looked like Seattle could mount a comeback, 3rd and 5, down 5, just the spot Seattle loves to live in, Preston Smith comes flying in off the edge to sack Russell Wilson. Seattle never touched the ball again. That's how Green Bay advances back to the conference championship game, Brandon.
You mentioned, I feel like LaFleur did a great job giving the ball to your best player and letting him win the game. That's what you need to do to win games in the playoffs. A guy who's been there before, a guy that you know, that you trust, that's not going to make a key mistake, put the ball in his hand, and, you know, Aaron Rodgers rewarded him. You know, I can pick up this 3rd and 8. I can pick up this 3rd and 9. But the key to this game for me was his defense. That's one thing Aaron Rodgers never had these past couple years, a defense that can step up and get stops when they needed to. You alluded to Preston Smith making big plays. Zadarius Smith making sacks at the beginning of the game. They had Russell Wilson running for his life the whole game trying to make throws on the run. So I feel like this defense, the way they stepped up, Jair Alexander challenging these guys on the outside, let everybody know, hey, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to have the LeBron syndrome anymore. Like, you're better than everybody, win it by yourself. Like, no, this guy needs help. We're going to get him help on the defensive end, and that's what's going to make sure that you guys can sum up wins in the playoffs. The defense played well. Now's the key to the win for me.
Nick, you had the Packers. You still have them in the Super Bowl. You've had it very early
Chiefs was my preseason pick.
But you have had some questions about them over the last couple of weeks because of the way Aaron Rodgers has played. Aaron Rodgers reiterated in his post-game press conference, as he has all season long, look, no one really believed in us. It was nice to see the fans out there rooting for us. I don't know how many. Do you have more confidence in them? From what you saw yesterday, now that Aaron Rodgers has taken more of the sort of the front role in the win?
It was great to see Rodgers play a great game. He was also my preseason pick to win league MVP. He won't get a single MVP vote, and even if they did a 5-man ballot, he wouldn't get a single MVP vote. He was not very good the second half of the year. And had they lost this game, you'd say, okay, next year he turns 37. Are they going to have a bye again? They've only had 3 his whole time there. Are we in a different phase of his career? And the fact of the matter is we are in a different phase of his career. He's no longer the best player in the league, but he is still good enough to dial up what he dialed up against Seattle yesterday. And the other element to the game, and Seattle's just evidently going to keep doing this, is Seattle's commitment to futilely running the football. They call plays for the 2nd straight postseason like Blake Bortles is their quarterback. Like they only can throw the ball when they have to.
They absolutely
Last year,
have to.
They lost to the Cowboys because their commitment to running the ball with no success. It was worse this year. In the playoffs this season, the Seattle Seahawks ran the ball with the running back 32 times. They gained 58 yards on those carries. One rush went for longer than 8 yards. Their best running back yesterday was Russell Wilson. Their best player yesterday was Russell Wilson. And every time they ran the ball, Green Bay, I'm sure, was like, thank you. We do not have to deal with Russell Wilson, because late in the game, if Malik Turner had that drop, if he doesn't have that drop, because they now have to trust Russell Wilson, they might come back. But yeah, Green Bay's a flawed team. Green Bay's not a perfect team. But they're also now one game away from going to the Super Bowl when they have a decided advantage at quarterback in that game with Rodgers versus Jimmy G.
It's almost like the Seahawks are stuck in time when we run the ball and we play defense, not in this new school of football. These guys at quarterback is airing the ball out. They're putting points on the board, and when you're running, and especially when you're not gaining yards on the ground. Tennessee is a different story.
Yep.
You know, Derrick Henry is their bell cow, and you trust Derrick Henry more than you trust Tannehill. You put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands if you're the Seahawks, and let him just make plays. Put him in the gun, let him run around, make plays all over the field. So I feel like Pete Carroll has to have a coordinator that's going to come in and get out of this philosophy saying we need to run the ball even when we can't. If it's working, go do it. But if it's not, you have to change it up.
I'm glad you mentioned Tennessee. They call the game like their quarterback running back combo is Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, but it's Russell Wilson, Travis Homer. Like, what do you do in Seattle? I picked Green Bay because I did not trust Seattle would have the right game plan, and once again, they don't have the right game plan. And Russell's so good, they won't fire the coordinator because they won a playoff game, won 11 games. He needs someone who will unleash him fully.
And Lockett showed he can make plays last game. Metcalf showed up the last playoff game, showing him what he can do on the outside. I mean, it just has to change.
It's crazy.
Meanwhile, the NFC is down to their top 2 seeds in the Packers and the Niners. Coming up, did Pat Mahomes have the greatest playoff performance?
He might have.
Next on First Things First.
It was the second quarter. He certainly had the greatest second quarter ever. They're down to